Oi, you know what time it is? You're tuned in listening to Dry That Aussie Metal Guy. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his content when it drops. And remember, stay brutal, you mad dogs. Roof!
Okay, g'day, how you all going? It's Dry That Aussie Metal Guy here with Crank.com, and tonight, wherever you are in the world, it's a great pleasure that we have Xephyr out of Toronto in Canada. We have Jake and Zakk. Cheers for joining us, guys.
Hey, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
No worries.
Thanks for having us.
Absolute pleasure. I know the No Signal album did drop on 12th of January, which we will dive into. But first off, guys, can you tell us a little bit about who Xephyr are and how would you describe your sound to someone who hasn't heard you before?
Sure. Xephyr is basically an amalgamation of a bunch of different music paths come into one and just kind of mixing and see what happens, if I'm really honest. We started with our more grungy roots, a little bit of punk rock kind of stuff too. And more recently, we've been getting into the more progressive and even some of the post-metal kind of stuff that we're hearing lately. But I think the best way to explain us is that we are a mishmash of different genres coming together to make some good music.
For sure. I think all four of us, we definitely have like a very distinct sort of we all kind of bring a very distinct flavor to what we really like and everything. Like Jacob, you were very much like, again, sort of the 2000s sort of, punk, sort of like your Rise Against and all that. And myself, yeah. Lionel has been, Mr. 90s grunge, like literally as long as I've known him. And then Alex is very, very thrash metal, very old school, very traditional sort of metal. And myself, I was much the same in that regard. And so we've been, I'm so all over the place. But that's kind of the nice thing about us too, I think, is we all really try and appreciate as much music as we can and try and embrace as many ideas as we can in our own writing. So as Jacob was saying, it definitely is kind of an amalgamation of just everything we like, and people seem to think it works. So
it works. So that's all I care.
Yeah, well, it definitely works, and like I think the band formed somewhere around 2010 with Lionel, and he kind of had a few band changes, and it kind of feels like you guys kind of hit your straps when you, Zakk and Jake, come onto the band as well. You know what I mean? You kind of start filling out the band, and you had those different influences and sound and everything kind of coming into it. Tell us a little bit about first, that, and then kind of you guys joining the band, how you both kind of come a part of this project, and then, bringing your influences and style into the band as well, because you can definitely hear that especially with this latest album.
100%. I think Zakk came in just before I did, so if he wants to take
like I think it was like maybe a month or two, because back when I joined, it was just Lionel and our former drummer Tyler. So we were kind of like, the band was kind of in a very transitional sort of period at that point, and then Lionel basically wanted a second guitar player really to kind of fill out the sound, and then we all had a bunch of mutual friends who knew Jacob, who we all knew he was an incredible vocalist, but I'm not even sure how we, like, because we knew you could play guitar. I don't know if we knew you could really play bass. But
so one of our mutual friends, shout out Galen, she's awesome. She actually referred Lionel to me through a couple of connections that we have. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, at that time, I knew more guitar than bass, but I did play bass. So it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, he plays bass. And I'm like, okay, I guess I play bass now. And so I ended up coming in for an audition. They seemed to like me because I've been here ever since. And it's been pretty smooth sailing. My background too is just all over the place. Like Zakk said earlier, I'm very punk rock. I grew up on Green Day and Rise Against, but I also grew up on all the classic rock stuff. And then I had, how old am I now? I'm 28, so that means about almost 20 years of classical training since I was like 10. So it's been a minute.
What started with your classical training? Tell us a little bit about that. Kind of how just
Yeah. So it started in choir when I was a kid.
Yep.
Ever since I was like 3 years old, My mom always was talking about her favorite moment with me in any sort of singing thing. I was in junior kindergarten, and I can't remember what we were singing, but they took a video and like everyone was singing nicely, and then you see me, my veins were popping out of my freaking neck singing this damn song. So ever since I was a kid, I loved it. So my parents put me in piano, and that didn't really work out. So then I started getting into a lot of vocal programs in school, and it was all classical music, choir music, all that fun stuff. And then I ended up going to a school in the GTA called St. Elizabeth's Catholic High School, which has a regional arts program or a rap program. And then I spent 4 years doing like actual professional vocal training from there. Got my degree in everything. And I've always been huge on choir music. I've always been huge on orchestral music. If you couldn't tell, man.
Half the time when we're sitting in the car together, it's like you're showing me like stuff you were doing in school, whether it be orchestral or choirs or like all kinds of stuff. Like again, not exactly what you'd expect like a rock band guys to be listening to, but it's always really cool, you know.
Well, you see stuff like that, and then like you see the stuff like the Trans-Siberian Orchestra or whatever Yngwie Malmsteen is doing at this point.
Even Flesh God Apocalypse, so many bands like that have orchestral versions.
Exactly.
Powerwolf, like on most of their albums, they do a deluxe edition. I fucking smash the molds, man. I'll sit there and listen to classical music as well, dude. I go from like the most brutal death metal shit to some classical stuff. Not a problem at all.
Don't even think about it. And I think it's just because it's like the grand sound of it all. You know what I mean? Like I feel like metal has this big in-your-face sound, and like orchestral music and choir music, especially for me, has that same kind of feel. When you have a 30, 40, 50 person huge choir singing this whole thing, it's like, it's almost like life-changing. It grabs you by the freaking shoulders and goes like, here I am. You know what I mean?
I think that was one thing that I found really interesting when we first met. I think one of the first artists we really bonded over was Nightwish.
Nightwish, yeah.
And just like between that and obviously Devin Townsend and his like myriad of projects, it's like I think a lot of that sort of influence has kind of bled its way into, you know, how we write music now. Because like I think Lionel will be the first to admit the first Zephyr record or two was very, very like Nirvana cover band, basically. You know, like he has admitted it. But I think ever since you and I have joined, and now Alex as well, there has been so much more it's gotten so much more dense. There's so many more layers. There's so much more nuance, so much more attention to the detail.
So many more strings.
Yeah. And just to really fill out this sound, right? Because like again, I think that's one thing that we all can agree on is we like big sounds. We like music that has that impact. So regardless of whatever style it is, it's just like as long as it makes you have that sort of visceral reaction to it, I think that's really what we're all kind of drawn to.
100%.
Yeah, it definitely does have that big sound. And I love the way you guys kind of vocally kind of share, like Zakk, you're on those real heavy screams. And then you, Jake, you've got this heavy kind of booming voice that just kind of grabs you as well. So I knew there had to be something more to that as well, because I think I put on that first track and then I'm like, oh, okay, then this is cool. And the way this kind of all worked out. How do you kind of work that together with the three of you, you know?
I think a lot of it just kind of, we play to our strengths, I would say. Lionel, and like we were talking about how his earlier albums were a little more grungy. Complete credit where credit is due in this one. He wrote some absolute bangers in this one. Like off the top of my head, Wrench, Wanted You to Know. Oh my goodness, that's my favorite song off the album too. Why am I? Figured You Out, even songs that he wouldn't necessarily write originally, like Back for Good. He's had this vision for a lot of these songs, and I think what Zakk and I are really, really good at, not just creating on our own, but also bouncing off of his ideas. Because I think really, I personally, I like to bring a lot of obviously my classical training, which means a lot of my theory and all that stuff there. And so I'm able to kind of pick together and put together a lot of stuff like harmonies, a lot of stuff like filling out the void in the sound. Whereas I feel like Zakk, anytime Zakk gets his hands on a guitar and starts playing stuff that we're going to be playing, I know it's going to be good. Like he has, you have this ability to write melody lines that just blow my fucking mind. Sorry, I don't know if we can swear right now.
You
But,
certainly can't swear. It's
absolutely.
Australia, mate.
All right.
Aussies over here. We swear.
All right, here we go. Yeah, so he absolutely blows my mind every time he picks up a guitar. And I think, especially with this album, we were able to really sit down and go, okay, these are the things that we want to say. This is how we want to say it. And I want to play to our strengths as much as possible in order to get the best product out. Even stuff like, because Alex is kind of the newest person in the band. Zakk left for a little bit and then came back, but Alex, as like a joining, is the newest point. He brings so much dynamic drumming because he's a very thrashy person, but one of his biggest idols is Neil Peart, sorry. And to see him go through a bunch of these different like fills and variations and just these ideas on the drums, like I love using that stuff. I always think about I always think about the idea of like no idea is bad. It's just not in the right place yet. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how we've figured it out. And I think we're still kind of figuring out a little bit, but we've actually got some stuff that we're sort of writing right now, and whew, it's fun.
Yeah, well, the No Signal album was a few years in the making. I suppose you guys kind of, I think, started somewhere late 2019. Correct me if I'm wrong. 2020, not long after the last album, Iron Wine, come out. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had three of the signals. We had three of the singles come out.
I thought I was going to do that as well.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, I'm going to do it at least twice, 2 or 3 more times. We had the 3 singles come out just as the pandemic was starting. We had started recording it just as it started. And then obviously that kind of put a damper on it, but we always knew that we wanted to write an album after we put those singles out. And it just kind of went through a couple of different variations before it hit the recording aspect of it. And then there was a couple of stumbles along the way, a couple of delays. And realistically, as much as those delays kind of sucked, at the other end of it, we really wanted to make sure that the product that we were sending out there, especially because a lot of these songs mean so much to us, we wanted to put our best foot forward. And I think I speak for all of us when I say that we really wanted to make sure that our best foot forward meant something, not just to us, but to everybody else as well. So Absolutely. Making sure that project and that product was as good as it can be was kind of paramount. So if it took more time, then it took more time.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it also came from, I think we can all safely say that Iron Wine didn't exactly turn out the way we wanted to. And I think it was just a lot of circumstances that were just sort of beyond our control, and the band was kind of in flux at that point. So I think with this new record, we also had something to say in terms of like, yeah, okay, we can write, but it's like, this is what else we can do. We can, we wanted to really basically give it our all and really make sure we took the time and the, everything that really needed to make this project what it is a reality. Because it's like at the end of the day, it's just like we want something that we're all going to be super proud of, and it's just like something that our friends and our fans and all that can really get behind as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you can hear that in this album. It does kind of, it would have sucked having those delays, but it was also, you can hear it in the album. It's a very thought out project, and you can hear that you put the time in these tracks, and it has some great hooks, as you mentioned, on the singles from No Signal.
There we go.
It does have some great hooks in it, even if you're jumping in there, like Remember, as you mentioned before, I Wanted You to Know, and The Desperation. There's some great standout tracks on this album, but then also listening to the whole album as a whole is really a great thing as well.
Thank you. And
Yeah,
I really like, I think a lot of it too was, I think we really also wanted to put forward just kind of, I guess, our experience too. I mean, we all experienced the pandemic.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone listening and all of us here, we've all had our struggles and our issues, especially the last few years because of this world-changing event. And I think that also really drove us to not just write the music that we did, but really want to take a step forward when things started opening up again. It's like, okay, like, you know, this can happen again, like, let's be honest, it could happen at any point. So I think there was an air of wanting to make sure that if we have this stuff, we want to make it as good as possible when we have the opportunity. And I think we did everything we could to seize it.
And you can hear the clear evolution to kind of, as you mentioned, you know, between the albums, kind of Iron Wine, you can understand the kind of influx and everything happening, you guys joining the band and starting to make your influence on it. But as I mentioned, this No Signal album, it definitely, you can hear the growth and the evolution in the band. It's got to be exciting for not only you guys, but also for Lionel, having you all come in and the different influences and kind of seeing the growth and the potential for the band, because you are bringing in these real progressive elements to the band as well. And it's not just, as you mentioned, like in the earlier incantations of Zephyr, like more of the grungy punk sound. It's kind of,
Yeah. And I think you would also say for us as well is that he has 4 writers now instead of just the one, right? And not only is that diversified our sound, but it's also diversified the pool of stuff that he dips into. You know, like we all really push ourselves to become better musicians together, which really gives us the opportunity to not just write what we want, but also to learn from each other and then go, oh, you know what? I never thought of it this way. Why don't we do it like this? Why don't we do it like that? There are so many examples on this album of that happening. And it's just, it's not only just been our best product by far objectively, but it's also been something that's really brought us together as musicians. And I think our live product in particular is really, really solid because of that. We all, I don't want to toot my horn too much here, but I think we always put on a stellar live show. And I think it's really because we've spent so much time just bouncing off each other as musicians and learning together.
For sure. And I think honestly, in terms of the writing process too, I think again on previous records and whatnot, well, I guess previous record with Iron Wine, I think there was a very, very clear divide of, you know, listening to each track and you could kind of tell it's like, oh, okay, well, Jacob wrote this part or Lionel wrote this part, or, you know, he wrote this song or he wrote this song, or, but I find it's definitely a lot less clear with this with this new record. Like there are some songs like, because I admittedly I kind of joined the band or rejoined the band a little bit late in the writing process, so a lot of it was already done by the time I had rejoined. And you guys were showing me demos and stuff, and I'm like, I figured it would be something you would have written because it was just so big and just so like, and it's like, no, Lionel wrote all of this, and I'm like,
yeah,
what? Like you can write like this,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like, I think, yeah, in the time that we've all spent together, and it's like the time that we've, you know, both as musicians and just as people, kind of getting to know each other, getting to know each other's strengths, getting to understand kind of where we're all coming from. It becomes a lot more of a cohesive unit rather than just, you know, 4 independent songwriters throwing their ideas into a pot and just being like, hey, here it is. So,
yeah, exactly.
Definitely. I'm going to ask you guys, and I know it's like picking a favorite child, but this week, have you got a favorite track off the album and why? I know it's going to change week to week.
Oh, absolutely. And I think too, it's going to change for person to person as well, just depending on how much we work on it. Like I was in a lot of the mixing process as well, so I'm just sick of all of them. But if I have to,
I hate hearing myself too at times.
Oh, well, I mean, it gets to a point where it's like, oh, these songs are killer, but you know how you listen to a song you really, really like over and over and over again until it's like, oh man, I'm sick of this. Why the hell did I even freaking start listening to this thing in the first place? That's me, but with all of these songs, even that 14 songs, you know what I mean? But if I really had to choose a favorite, See, that's the thing, right? I have different kinds of favorites, but I think my favorite overall song, I would have to say is Wrench. I love the crap out of that song. That was one of them where Lionel had written the majority of it, but he was really asking for like a bridge, and he wanted to get a little more technical about it. And then I just started noodling, and I was like, hey, you know what? This sounds pretty good. And I decided to make things complicated for all of us as usual. That's kind of that's the way I write. I make things very difficult for everyone. But just the final product of it, it's one of the songs that really cemented us in our idea of we want to get bigger, we want to get heavier. It's one of the songs that we really definitely went out of our comfort zone in certain regards. Straight up, it is the song that made Lionel go out and buy a baritone guitar. So just from those things alone, I think the impact it had on us as musicians and just the direction that we want to go to going forward, I think that's my favorite song, just because there's so much involved in it.
Yeah. And I think it's a really good example too of a song that we all really worked to craft. Like, because again, that was like, because I remember first hearing the demo, and again, there was that part right after the chorus where it's just like, this sounds so cool, but there's something missing here. And of course, I had just bought a bass 6 at the time, and it's like, you know what? I've got this big dumb thing that's a full octave down. So I brought that in, and it just sounds like something like Deftones or like Loathe would have written, and it's like, we're like, oh yeah, this is what we want.
That's the ticket. And you know what? Even things like Alex too. Like Alex is an off-time master. I think he's got. I hope he has the best timing out of all of us. He's a drummer, but no, he definitely has the best timing out of all of us. And just the way he handled that song just blew me away. When he first played it, blew me away, blew the doors off the damn thing. So I'm in love with that song. Zakk, you're not escaping this. What's your favorite song?
Again, I think much like you, I have different favorites for different things. The one I've definitely come back to most, and I think mostly just because I enjoy playing it live so much, is Desperation. Because it was either that or Callahan, like one of the two. And I'm saving you Callahan, so we don't have to do that one live as often. But
thank you.
No, I think the Desperation, honestly, man, it's like, because that, I mean, you have such a huge stamp on that song, and that, I think, just, I really, really appreciate your complex writing, but I think the writing where you shine the most is just a song where you can bang it out in 3 minutes, and it's just like the core. I've heard from so many people, it's just like, there's nothing I would change about this song. Like, it is just like, the chorus is absurdly catchy. It's just got so much energy lyrically. It's just like, it's something everyone can kind of relate to, or at least most of us, I think, can relate to. And yeah, it's one of those songs that's got so much, like, live, it just, people lose their minds. And then just having that sort of breakdown to halftime in the middle, it's just like, oh, again, just the energy live, it's like nothing else. So that is definitely I'd say at this point, overall, my favorite on the whole record.
Oh, you're too kind. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely a killer track. And you keep talking about playing live. How's things going live over there? And, in particular for you guys, got any shows you recently played, or you got some coming up? Tell us how things are going over there for the live scene.
We've got, one of the shows that we have most recently coming out, I don't think we can talk about just yet.
That's all right. We have a show coming up. Make sure you follow Zephyr so you can keep an eye on that.
Oh, yeah. Keep an eye on our socials. We definitely have something in store for you. We have one coming up. Oh, my goodness. Lionel's so much better than I am.
The Wacken battle we can talk about. So that one.
We can? Okay, cool. Yeah, so all right. Okay, good.
So yeah, I'm not sure how other countries handle it, but it's like, here there is like, they do sort of like this countrywide
Wacken battle. Is it like each state? Kind of here in Australia, we got one for South Australia, and then they put on the whole of Australia one once they pick out the.
That's exactly it. So it's like, so like I guess they kind of do it the same way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were fortunate enough to be chosen to do it last year, and they invited us once again to do it this year. So it's like that one I think is March 1st. I think it's a Friday.
March 1st. Yes.
It's not long.
And so that's our.
Go. You're better.
Right.
You're better at the things.
So yeah, we're doing that show with three other local Toronto bands. They're all fantastic. And yeah, it was just last year. It was such a great experience. We met some really, really cool people. And again, the reception was phenomenal. So we were just, really, really excited to do it again. We actually just played our album release show. I think it was not last weekend, but the weekend before.
January 19th.
Yeah. So, and that was the first time I think ever we played a full album front to back. And a lot of these songs, like obviously it was our first time ever playing them live. So that was really exciting. And of course, like, I mean, being a band of our size, we really don't get to headline very often or sort of run our own show. So I think it was a really, really fun experience to just be able to, go on stage for like 70, 80 minutes and just play the whole thing kind of as it was meant to be experienced.
Absolutely. Real quick shout out to Carter for the fantastic PowerPoint display system on our 4 TVs.
Oh yeah, the visuals.
Yeah. Lionel had this idea forever. He wanted four like old TVs on stage playing different things as we performed. And our friend and my roommate Carter, who is stand-up guy, one of my best friends, put together this whole PowerPoint for it with a bunch of GIFs and all that stuff. And some of them were like really like big and like weird and stuff like that. And then some of them were really funny. I think the one that stood out for everybody was there was a guy that was on a skateboard that got like just canned by a truck. And that was insane. That was a lot of fun. I just wanted to shout him out real quick. But yeah, we've got that. We've got a couple more coming up. I think one at the end.
I don't know if we've officially announced them yet, but
yeah, plenty of shows coming up. It must be exciting. It must have been good to kind of play that launch show as well and kind of see the reaction of the crowd to different tracks, I suppose, and go and work out probably, as you were saying, Zakk, which ones I don't fucking want to play live, and which ones feel good, and you're like, fuck yeah, let's get that out live.
Hell yeah.
I think it was great too because it was we went on super late. Like I think we started about 11:30, like the band before us, and they ran a little bit late. But we had almost like the floor was almost entirely full.
Oh, cool.
Even then,
Yeah.
and it was just like,
really good to see.
It was mind blowing because again, it's just like for us, we're just so used to doing this kind of in front of our friends, right?
Yeah.
But to actually have like this many people stick around to watch your set and just it's just it really went to show like how many people actually kind of give a shit about this project.
It's great to see. It's great to see people supporting the local scene because I know it's probably the same over there. You have all these fucking bands that are just flooding the country at the moment, and sometimes people forget to still support the local scene. But surprisingly, here in Australia, we're still having, like we had Heavy SA last weekend here, which was a showcase of South Australian heavy metal bands, and actually sold out. And it was really good to see that people are still getting out and supporting the local scene. It's encouraging for me to see that people are still getting out to shows all over the bloody world, even supporting the local bands, considering the fucking influx of bands every country is having at the moment.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And especially here, like we're stuck in the middle of winter. It was like -20 and people still coming out, and it was just super cool.
Yeah,
very envious of your weather right now.
Well, we're in the middle of summer here. I'm cooking my fucking ass off.
Real lucky.
Best place to support Zephyr, guys. Like,
well, Zakk, you want to take these ones? Because again,
So I guess for our socials and whatnot, we're on everything. So gosh, I'm so not an Instagram guy, but we are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify. Actually, our Spotify numbers have been
It's
insane.
surprising.
Yeah, like that's I don't know who caught wind, but it's like I think we're up to almost 11K monthly listeners, which
Yeah,
is
which
more
is
than
just
some bands I listen to like normally, and it's just like, okay.
yeah, it's wild to think about.
That's
It's
great.
one of
Those
those.
11,000 people, if 1,000 of you go buy the album, you'd be a fucking legend as well.
That's exactly it. Exactly it.
Know what I mean? I
We
noticed
have
you do have it up on Bandcamp, the latest album as well, for people that like me, that are tragic Bandcamp nerds that like to buy
Yeah,
albums.
yeah.
And have you got physicals or merch or anything like that, people? You got a website?
Oh yes. I believe, did we change? I'm pretty okay. So Lionel's kind of on top of that stuff most of the time. I believe we just changed our domain. I believe it's Zephyr.rocks, if I'm not. Yes, it is. I
Nice.
just had to. We just got that. So it is Zephyr.rocks. We are also on Teespring, I believe, for a lot of the merch stuff. But we also have a lot of merch stuff that we have here, and we're looking to really get into the merch game. And a couple other things that we're looking into right now that I think a lot of people would be really excited about. So I think they're going to want to keep their ears tuned on our socials.
I think it's a great thing for people like in the rock and metal scene. We still like to support and buy fucking tons of shit that we're going to pass down to our kids and millions of black shirts. But for me, it's an important part of the scene. I do kind of bring light to it a bit, and I know you guys know it, but I've talked to some people that don't realize that, you know, you don't get as much from Spotify, or, you know, how important it is for the merch, so, you know, to kind of make the albums, you know, get to shows and studio time and everything like that. It's like having the extra band member. The fan is that extra band member that keeps the band going, you know, i.e. buying merch, buying tickets to the show, like you said, getting to your launch show and having a packed room. It really, it means the world to bands, and it help keep the band going. And sure as hell is the lifeblood for the band to be able to go buy merch, buy albums, support Zephyr. You know, you're a fan of Zephyr, go buy the merch, go support them, because it's the only thing that's going to keep the scene strong. The fans, we're all fans. I'm a fan. You guys are fans of the scene as well, and you all do it too. So, you know,
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, and like the big part about it too for us as well is, especially for us, we're finding that a lot of people, especially recently, have started to go back to more tangible media, like CDs, like vinyl. I've even heard about
I've got some of them, dude.
Some cassettes are, oh man, I would love to get some cassettes out. That would be cool. But like even merchandising stuff, I think a lot of social media is kind of like the who you're wearing, what you're doing, that kind of stuff. And so be able to get on that, I think, is really important for us too. I think we're going to be moving towards a lot of that as well. You look at bands more recently, like the one that I always go to because they have an amazing merch game is Spirit Box.
Yep.
The way that they produce all their stuff and get it out. Let's be honest, a lot of bands now are kind of stealing that kind of way of thinking, and it works. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost like a clothing line on top of it being a band. Like Ice Nine Kills is another band I think does it exceptionally well, where it's just every single drop is just, it's almost as important as, like, you know, when new music drops for a lot of people, you know, because it's just like, again, that way it's just like, it's, you know, it's paid, like it's free support for the band, and like, you know, and as a fan of the band, obviously, like, again, 90% of the wardrobe is
exactly.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. It is definitely an important. It's definitely been really interesting to watch sort of the evolution of the merch game too. So I think that's definitely something that we're definitely paying a lot of attention to, and going to be paying a lot more attention to going forward as well.
Absolutely.
Definitely the evolution of the music scene in general. You know what I mean? It's gone from, like, you know, where you'd go to the music store, buy the albums, and you'd have that. Now it's like you're basically fucking, it's sad to say, you make an album. It's like, there you go. You give it out for free,
Free-
and then
free,
hope
basically, yeah.
people support your band and buy merch. So that is important.
Yeah.
So good on you, everyone, for buying merch. Keep doing it.
100%.
Okay, cool. You can add in there, Jake.
I also too, like, I don't know how it is where you are, but in Canada, there's actually been a really big boom on vinyl. Huge explosion in vinyl.
Oh, fuck
Again.
yeah, dude. I love my vinyl. I started
Hell
building up
yeah,
a
hell
collection
yeah,
with
hell yeah.
COVID when COVID hit because we couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do any shows. So I started ordering
Yeah.
vinyls and shit like that
Yeah,
as well. 'Cause
absolutely.
it creates
We
a
just
whole
got a
different
huge-
experience, doesn't it? Listening to vinyl. It's like you have that
Absolutely.
whole album and you're locked into it, you know what I mean? Whereas you listen to something on a streaming cycle, it may play this, it may play that, or you bounce around all over. When you put on your vinyl, you have this, you create this whole listening experience. You're locked in, you listen to the first side, you flip it over, you listen to the other side. Like listening to whole albums, like I do encourage people if they haven't heard the whole No Signal to do it, not just pick out the singles, which are all great, but also listen to the whole album because it does create this experience for a listener. And I do enjoy that bands still some bands do put that emphasis into creating a whole album with the different flavors and moods into it as well.
And that was definitely a big focus kind of going into it as well, because I think a lot of it was really reflexive of, again, kind of our experience of the time. Like I don't want to say exclusively, but it's like the first half of the record does tend to be a little bit more moody, a little bit darker, a little bit more bleak almost. And then it's like come about the halfway point, you get a little more energy, a little bit more hopeful sort of towards the end of it. And then it's like, I think a song like Back for Good is really a really nice way to kind of cap it off and just to be really, this is where we are and we made it kind of thing. And it's just like, we're not going anywhere. So I think, paying attention to the whole sort of album process rather than it being just a collection of songs, I think is really, really important, both as a listener and as, a band.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think as Lionel said it, he said it really well. We got as close to making it a concept album without making it an actual concept album. So as an idea and as a flow, but I think the unique part about it is that every song has a moving theme towards it, but it's almost like a different experience every time. So you're getting a story, but you're getting a story in a bunch of different ways. It's almost like a bunch of different languages to get to the same point. So, I think we're getting a little too, what's the word, pretentious about it?
No, you're allowed to. That's what we're here for.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Look, this has been an absolute pleasure, Jake and Zakk. Look, do you guys have any last words, shout outs, thank yous, or anything else you'd like to add in there before we sign out?
I guess just a really, really big thank you to everybody who's given the album a chance. And, again, it's been such a ordeal for us to actually get this out. So anybody who's really given it a shot or, come to a show or anything like that, it really, really does mean the world to us.
Absolutely. And, thank you to our friends and families that have really kind of stuck by us on a lot of this and been our rock. Like, I know for me, I would be nowhere without my fiance. Him and I have been through a lot of stuff, and he really kind of helped me and supported me in times that we've all had bad times, but these were mine. And
it's great to have that support.
It's absolutely fantastic to have that support. So, my parents, and my family, my extended family are really close friends. It's been an all-encompassing experience, and I'm so glad that people are receiving it the way that they are. And I just hope that we can continue to make stuff that people continue to appreciate and just keep going from there. And tip your bartender.
You're a bartender as well.
Hell yeah.
Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. Guys, thank you so very much. Everybody grab some Zephyr, chuck it in the stereos really bloody loud. The neighbors are going to want to hear it as well. Cheers, guys.
Cheers,
Take
man.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oi, you're tuned in to Jai That Aussie Metal Guy, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his sick content. And remember, stay brutal, you legend.